Hi, good afternoon. I'm Melissa, from the Health Promoting Schools Committee in Edgeborough. And today we have Tameaka Lakey and Alexandra Bell from Health Promotion, who are health promotion officers at Ballarat Community Health in Western Victoria. They lead a diverse portfolio of youth health and well-being initiatives, including respectful relationships, consent and sexuality education, mental health and well-being, vaping prevention and education, and strengthening help-seeking pathways. So they're committed to improving youth health and well-being through whole school approaches and the delivery of evidence-informed, locally relevant, and inclusive school-based programs. So today we're going to be talking about relationships, which is the program that they do run. So Tameaka and Alex, so what do we currently know about the habits of young people in the area of relationships?
Hi, I'm Tameaka. I'll take this one to start if that's all right.
All yours. All yours.
As recent of May this year, 2026, we just had the release of the 8th Australian Survey of Secondary Students in Sexual Health. And this is from the Australian Research Centre in Sexual Health and Society at La Trobe University. And so the survey is like a cross-sectional study capturing snapshots of adolescent populations over time. It's been doing this since 1992. And so it's really taking a deep dive into young people's sexual experiences, their relationships, intimacy, but also their RSC, so their relationships and sexuality education that they're learning in schools. So young people that participate, they're aged 14 to 18 living in Australia. And so we're really excited because this is the most recent statistics. And so the study is actually showing that overall young people are doing pretty well when it comes to their own relationships and sexual health. This is about approximately half of them were sexually active, which has actually remained steady since 1992. So that's about the same.
Yeah, and we're so lucky to actually have that data to compare. Since 1992, that's a fantastic, section of data to draw back on to look at trends.
And it's also really exciting because most young people who are sexually active describe their last sexual experience as pleasurable and enjoyable. So it's 75%, but also safe, which is at 85%. And this is just amazing. Like, I'm so excited to actually see these stats. And then also most, so 80%, had condoms available, but only half actually used said condom.
Opportunity for work there, definitely from our perspective.
And then also from like a school's perspective, comprehensive relationships, consent, and sexuality education, or RSE, because that's such a mouthful. Young people are actually saying that 92% of them said that they received RSE at school, usually in years 6 to 9. So got to start, but there's, still a long way to go, I think.
Okay, thank you. I mean, it's interesting in terms of that stat. Do you think in terms of if we look at what we have been doing, since 1992 in the area of RSE, all right, is there any change that we can see in terms of like improvement to basically inform us that the teaching has been, helpful and, the students have taken on this learning?
So more recently, the surveys including more questions around relationships and consent in particular, especially with the affirmative consent mandate across Australia now. So although they're receiving RSE, we actually also found in the study that only 45%, or less than half, said it was relevant to them. And this is even less for those identifying as LGBTIQA+. So we know that RSE is best taught across all year levels from foundation to year 12, but schools and teachers, they really need some extra support. So we've got the curriculum, particularly here in Victoria, under the Resilience Rights, Respectful Relationships curriculum from Department of Education. And then also our Sexual Health Victoria, which is our lead organisation in sexual reproductive health and relationships education. But actually teachers need that little bit more support, because takes a village to raise a young person. You know, everyone has their role to play, whether it's the teachers in the school, at home, but also the students themselves when they're ready to learn. But then also wrap around with our community services, so like Ballarat Community Health, as well as our local women's health services too. So it's a really whole community approach to not just what's being taught in the curriculum.
And I think that's definitely becoming more evident with the importance of that whole of school approach. Respect for Relationships has it, Sexual Health Victoria has it, we use it to underpin our work. And I think that's becoming a real theme, that recognising that education is not in isolation, it actually is part of this comprehensive framework. And if we use this, we can actually achieve change.
Right. So you're actually talking about the Health Promoting Schools framework, isn't it? Yeah. So
Yes.
how does that actually support your work in relationships across like local schools?
Yeah, so we use the Health Promoting Schools framework as the foundation for all of our work with schools, whether they're looking at relationships, whether they're looking at food and nutrition, whether it's vaping, whether it's sun protection. We will use that as our cornerstone of our work. In Victoria, we use the Healthy Places, Healthy Futures initiative. So previously it was called the Achievement Program, but we've had a name change since it was launched June this year. So we're really excited about that. And the advantage of that for our schools is it is free. And you get access to a range of tailored support, including your local health promoter. So for our schools, that's Tameaka and I.
And so with the whole of school approach, you know, we are looking at policies and procedures. So what are the mandates through Victorian government, but also Australian government, for instance, the affirmative consent, as well as child safety? What other policies do schools need to have as well, including like diversity and inclusion and things like that as well, which then underpins that school culture and teachers feeling supported to not only teach the curriculum, but also be positive role models. When we're talking about relationships, it's more than just education. We're really talking about people's values and their beliefs. And sometimes people come from lots of different backgrounds, have different experiences, different home life. And so there can be lots of different values and beliefs in that school community. So it's really about working together, building that staff capability, but also parent and family engagement too is really, really important. And then linking to those local health services. Like we said, community health, our local women's orgs, but also to other services too, whether it's like our local CASA or Victoria Police or Headspace even as well. So it's really working together to support that children and young people's overall health and well-being, and really underpinning and supporting what we're teaching in the classroom as well.
I think to add to that too, the real value of being a health promoting school is it's not just for students. It is around families and carers, and it is around staff. Schools are a workplace as well. So supporting our teachers with their own health and well-being is crucial.
Exactly.
Yep, very good, very good. Very glad to hear about that emphasis about bringing, the whole entire school community, not just with students, because eventually, teachers are the ones who are responsible, or rather, they have to deliver that curriculum. And if they are not well taken care of, that's going to be a bit of an issue, isn't it?
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely.
So in terms of like, with RSE, okay, what are the benefits and challenges you think young people may actually face in this area?
So I guess it really comes back to that point we were saying before about RSE being best taught across all year levels from foundation to year 12 and being part of that whole of school approach. Because what we're seeing back, if we think about the study, is saying that many young people receive most of their RSE in years 6 to 9. And so, year 6, often around puberty, but actually many children have actually started puberty a lot earlier. So grade 6 is a little bit too late. But then also by year 9, like majority of young people are yet to actually initiate any sexual experiences. So it's almost a little bit too early. It's really that mix that it's really important time for prevention work, like doing things early. But from a young person's perspective, the information may or may not seem relevant at the time. So it can also be difficult to, when the time, or if and when the time is right, to actually have to recall and remember and reapply that learning years later. So, especially if they start to begin navigating relationships, consent, intimacy, or real life situations as they getting into those older year levels.
And we know that young people, like, if it's not quite relevant for them at that particular time they're at, they're probably not going to tune in great detail. And it's just like, oh yes, that doesn't apply to me, this time. And then, as Tameaka said, recalling that information when it does become relevant is really difficult. And that's where, our young people might start accessing information from maybe not the most reliable sources. So seeing what, Dr. Google has to say about, how do I ask someone out? Or, what happens with this? We want to make sure that we're providing the right information at the right time when our young people are ready.
Definitely. And so also being part of that whole of school approach puts a face to our community health service to these young people as well. So they know that we exist out in the community, that they can come and see, help and support if and when they need as well.
That they can access free condoms, which would be really useful if we're thinking of that stat about, not quite half are actually using condoms when they are having a sexual encounter.
Exactly. But it also comes back to, why it's so important to build the foundations of respect for relationships, like consent, body awareness, and sexuality education, really from those early years, and then continue those conversations bit by bit each year. So thinking about early primary school, we're building those foundations, those building blocks, so we can continue those conversations every single year, bit by bit. That's stage appropriate, but also relevant at the time for those young people as well and their evolving needs.
And really sharing the load, when we're talking about, if we're thinking foundation to 12, if all teachers are taking on some responsibility to teach this, we're sharing the load across all years. We know the curriculum is jam-packed. There's not a lot of wriggle room in there. So if we can spread it across, we will lighten the load, particularly for our teachers who are in, grade 6 to year 9, and making sure we are providing that consistent messaging.
Definitely. And that way then we're moving beyond RSE being a one-off event, and it's something that's growing alongside the children and young people as they're growing as well.
All right, that's a very good point, because basically, if we look at the Australian curriculum HPE, all the focus areas, which includes relationships and sexuality, which is where this sits within, it's supposed to be done from P to 10, which means, and there's no like you mentioned about them teaching about puberty in year 6. I mean, there is nowhere in the curriculum that stipulates that's when they have to teach it. So and you're right, by the time they reach year 6, a good number would have already gone through puberty, and they definitely need this information to know what sort of actions they have to take, right? And how to understand their body and know what's going on with them, especially if they don't actually receive any sort of information at home at all.
Definitely. Like it really does build on their knowledge, skills, and behaviors so they can make responsible and safe choices for themselves. 100%.
Yeah. So, okay. So in terms of this, right, what sort of support teachers are able to receive relating to the teaching of relationships and sexuality, that focus area within the HP curriculum?
Well, the good thing is teachers don't need to start from scratch.
Yay.
It's great. Often we're pulling bits and pieces from different places because new evidence is coming out, or new activities and resources and organizations are coming out all of the time. But really, there are excellent supports available, including curriculum-aligned resources and lesson plans, as well as professional learning. And this is done best I believe, through the Family Planning Alliance member organisations. So each state and territory have their own. So for instance, in Queensland, there's like True Relationships and Reproductive Health. In South Australia, they've got Shine SA. Here in Victoria, like we've got Sexual Health Victoria.
Yeah.
But then also here in Victoria, our Department of Education has the Resilience, Rights and Respectful Relationships curriculum. And this is actually designed from foundation to year 12. So it's including year 11 and 12 students that often get missed as well. And all of these resources and curriculum is really available for teachers to download online. So that could happen across all of Australia too. Other states who are trying to get some different ideas or ways, especially when we're coming to that consent education or talking about gender and sexuality as well. There's whole chapters and activities that are age and stage appropriate. But I think the real opportunity is moving beyond those individual lessons and not just thinking about the curriculum, but really looking at that whole of school approach. So is it time that we do an audit around relationships in a school? Let's look at the policies, what needs to be updated, looking at our school culture, what support are we providing our teachers? What professional development are we providing our teachers and school staff? How are we engaging with parents? How are we talking to them about what messaging we're doing at school? We're giving the facts and figures, and it is up to the parents and the carers to talk about their values and beliefs, and for the young person to merge those two things together. But then also, more importantly as well, is those referral pathways into our local health services, whether that is for the students themselves or the teaching staff, but also their families and carers as well, that we are here to help and support every step of the way as well. Because if we all work together to support children and young people, the whole, for their, sorry, I forgot what I was saying.
So it's all about working together, and this is definitely around, growing healthy and thriving young people, and we want to see that. And as Tameaka said earlier, it does take a village, and this is where we can all work together to do so.
That's what I was saying.
Okay, thank you very much. I think this is most helpful, just for whoever's listening, just to understand, from the perspective of young people, what's happening within the curriculum, because this is an important component. And eventually, whichever state they might be in, right, where they can actually obtain some form of assistance, because we do need young people to learn this in schools, and that's actually really important. So,
Absolutely. And I think it's a really good opportunity to sort of break down some of those silos between states, where we can share resources. Yes, the specifics of the curriculum might change between state to state, but we are all guided by the Australian curriculum, and we are teaching the same thing. A consent activity in Victoria will still work for a school in WA. So
that's exactly right. So thank you very much today, Tameaka and Alex, for your time. I really appreciate it. And hopefully, we'll hear you very soon again in our next podcast. So thank you.
thank you.
Thanks for having us. It's been great.
Okay.